Are we ready to start? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. I will start the recording.
Okay. All right. So we'll call the meeting to order. Mr. Zarzecki, can you please call roll?
Sure. Ms. Chick?
Here.
Mr. Kuzno is not online. Mr. Dreyer?
Present.
Mr. Quinto?
Here.
Ms. Afante?
Here.
Mr. Roman?
Here.
And Zarzecki. So we have 7 present.
Okay, thank you. I make a motion, we adopt the agenda.
Support.
Supported by Ms. Chick. Any questions, comments on that? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. We'll go to call the public. Mr. Lippens.
All right. Good evening, everybody, and good evening, members of the public. We have 2 calls to the public this evening. One at the beginning of the meeting, one at the end. This is an opportunity for participants to speak to items on the agenda or not on the agenda. What I'm going to do, and if you've participated in some of these meetings, you know the drill. If you raise your hand, I will acknowledge you, and you will have an opportunity to address the Planning Commission for 3 minutes. I will also start my timer. And just a quick reminder that the board does not respond to your comments, but they may address it in their own personal comments during a time on the agenda. So please do raise your hand if you would like to speak at this call. Currently, I am seeing 1 member of the audience who would like to speak, Mr. Gordon. Mr. Gordon, I've unmuted you, and you have the floor.
Good evening, David Gordon, Helmet Road. I'm kind of liking these Zoom meetings. I just wanted to comment because I was watching the news this evening, and apparently the Senate passed a bipartisan bill to raise $9 billion, I believe, over the next 10 years to support national parks, which is the first time that it's ever been permanently funded. And that's really exciting news. I'm the chair of the Land Preservation Committee in the township now, and I hope that we too can find some permanent funding avenue at some point for land preservation and our parks department, because it's very popular with the public. Nature's important. Saving the open areas, the wild areas, and the natural areas that we have in our township is a priority of the community. So I just wanted to pass that along, and it's unfortunate that you couldn't have your public hearings tonight on the marijuana applicants, and I was curious if you have a date for when those are actually going to happen, because I know the businesses are interested in moving forward. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Gordon. And I'm not seeing any other panelists with their hand raised. So I believe that concludes our call to the public.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to any clarifications from commissioners? None. Okay, we'll move on. Correspondence. We have the marijuana facility applications update. Mr. Lippens, anything on that?
These are just regular updates, memorandums to keep Planning Commission and the board in the loop on any additional material I've received from applicants.
So no significant change as from our first meeting this month?
There were some changes. The GS Ashley submittal pointed out that in their conditional use application, they took the opportunity to check off the no variances column on the MDVLDA form, or I think it's actually MFVLDA form. Additionally, there was, I believe, some changes to the Joyology, I think, provided some details. Anyway, minor changes, but yes, this is different than the last one. The substance of the changes are clarifications of what was intended by the packet, as well as some applicants making changes to their MFL, their voluntary local development agreement form. And if more information comes in, we'll continue to update. What we have been doing, though, is maintaining a column that shows everyone the initial score. So if you ever want to know, well, what was the initial score, that'll be there, and then I'll continue to update. Although I have been checking in with people, and I think we've addressed everyone's concerns. So I'm not sure there will be more updates, but there may be. I'll keep you posted. Yes.
Can I ask a question on the correspondence?
Yes.
Okay, so the last correspondence we had listed 5 businesses that we were talking about scheduling for public hearings, correct? And now we have 6?
Yes.
Okay.
We've received an additional application.
Okay, so do we have conditional use and site plan information on all of these, or and if we have them, can we get them earlier? Because that's a lot of information for the planning commission to review. And if we get it like just before a meeting, it's going to be problematic in trying to digest all of it.
Yes, I think that's a great suggestion. And I could prepare a packet of materials kind of as we stand. I expect that the applicants would probably like the opportunity to do a round of revisions.
Okay.
And so we might get a revised site plan and a revised site plan letter from the applicants in advance of public hearing. But I think it would be a good idea to forward the status to planning commissioners kind of over each of these applications. It is a lot of material.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Yep, thank you. I think that's it for correspondence, and I think Larry's saying, give us a minute. Yeah, he's reconnecting his audio.
Me know? No.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay.
It's coming back. Yep.
Okay, very good. Sorry about that. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move on. There's no public hearings tonight. Reports from committees. Board of Trustees, Ms. Chick.
Okay, the Board of Trustees met May 26th and June 9th. I apologize, I didn't get the 26th one in last time. We met via Zoom. The board voted to republish the notice of intent to bond for the equalization basin. These would be general obligation bonds in the amount of $4.6 million. The board also voted to sell 75 Barker to Mr. Rob Munger for $112,500 with conditions. Mr. Munger will be investing $500,000 approximately to renovate the building. The board continued discussion on the budget. In face of revenue cuts from the state due to COVID-19, we are considering possible cuts. However, the exact percentage of cuts is not known. And so the board will kind of probably approve the budget as is and make amendments as the year goes on when we have better figures from the state. The board also discussed the deficit in our building department of $55,000. We are looking at all options to either increase revenue for the department by raising our fees or a way to cut costs. Options are to find an in-house planning or zoning administrator or an inspector for smaller projects and a firm for larger, if we get any. Another was to send all of our building needs to the county. Another was to send out an RFP for planning firms to see if we could get a lower rate. The discussion, however, continues. So if any of you have any suggestions on how to improve our building department, please let us know. The board also discussed public hearings done virtually, and the board by consensus believes that this is appropriate. That's all I have.
Thank you. ZBA, Mr. Kuzno is not present, so there is no report for that.
Staff report, anything from staff, Ms. Byrd?
I have nothing, thank you.
Okay, planning consultant report, Mr. Lippens.
I would just share with Planning Commission that, as you know, and certainly based on trustees Chick's report, the board has been fairly active in its budget season. As part of that, we had not had the opportunity to address the emergency marijuana uses. I did prepare a memorandum for the board, and I anticipate it being on the next meeting, based at least on my emails with the manager today. So we should have some feedback from the board in that regard soon for Planning Commission. So I look forward to being able to place that back on your agenda for discussion.
Thank you. Parks and Recreation report, Mr. Iaquinto.
Thank you. We have a virtual meeting tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock. If anyone would like the connection for that, you can reach out to Jennifer Carlisle and she can forward that to you. And the Bark Park is there for residents and non-residents to enjoy. Also, the community garden, there still are several of the pods left. So reach out to Jennifer Carlisle for one as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Downtown Planning Group, Ms. Infante.
She's muted.
The group will be meeting on the 24th via Zoom at 7 o'clock.
I got the 24th via Zoom, but not much else. Maybe
At 7, I cut out. Sorry about that. Yep,
There
at
you
7
go.
o'clock, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Item 9, unfinished business discussion to develop Zoom public hearings. Mr. Lippens.
Yes, thank you, Planning Commissioner. This is This is the only agenda item we have this evening for discussion. Really, what we want is a clarification and possibly a motion to move forward with holding the public hearings via Zoom. There was some discussion at the board. As Trustee Chick mentioned, the board felt that that was appropriate. I certainly agree with the sentiments expressed by several commissioners at the last meeting that meeting in person is certainly our preference and it's the normal course of business. But given our situation and the need to continue social distancing, we really sense the urgency of moving forward with this. And I think it would be our recommendation to kind of revise or possibly rescind and make a new motion to your last motion, which I believe specified that we would reschedule when we could meet in person, to basically allow us to notice for a Zoom meeting. I've had a couple communications with the attorney about this. I think that what we will do is notice all meetings to be online Zoom meetings as long as the emergency order that permits us to, or that modifies the Open Meeting Act to permit us to do that is in place. I think that if that order expires before the meeting is held, what we need to do is include that information in the notice as well. And that would go something to the effect of, if the executive order that permits us to meet online expires, this meeting will be held in person at Township Hall. Before we send this out this time, I'm going to make sure the attorney reviews it so that the attorney is comfortable. There's been some discussions about why they were canceled. I think we've been through that, but essentially there's more interest in the meeting than we could possibly meet indoors. and safely social distance. It was the advice of the chief and the attorney after reviewing the situation that we cancel. We did. I certainly appreciate the discussion that we had. At this time, we are asking Planning Commission to consider basically authorizing the administration to schedule those public hearings as soon as possible. And at the next possible regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting via Zoom as well. The one thing that I will say that I think planning commissioners would be interested in is when I reached out to the applicants to let them know that the meeting was canceled, I also asked if anyone had any objections to doing a Zoom meeting. Because these are unprecedented times, I wanted to know if applicants were anxious to move ahead, were comfortable with this format, and I heard from everyone unilaterally that they would like to move forward with scheduling the meetings via Zoom. Obviously, each applicant might have some questions, concerns about their individual applications, but the overall tone is everyone is interested in moving forward quickly. And I think we definitely have an open dialogue and people that are working in concert with the township to effectively evaluate the applications and hopefully get some businesses going here. So
Thank you.
that's my report. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Mr. Lippens, a question. When do you see the first regularly held meeting by the Planning Commission being this meeting? We have to public notice it again, correct? And how many days would that entail? And so when would be the earliest meeting that we're talking about?
I think we are looking at the 15th of July.
The second.
And
Okay.
I don't think we have any issue in making that meeting because the 1st of July is a Wednesday. We're not able to make the notice requirements for the first Planning Commission meeting in July.
Okay. So the other fact is that in addition to what Mr. Lippens described to us, the board actually the following week on June 9th had a public hearing on the budget via Zoom. So obviously that one got a public notice that reflected that they were doing it that way. It kind of sets a precedent, and I can understand the concerns of the applicants wanting to get their process moving along. So, and I also reflected that in comment at our last meeting that if it was up to me, I would do it either way. So since I made that motion, I would like to rescind that motion, and I think I need that supported by Mr. Zarzaki, who supported that motion.
I will support that.
Okay, so we're rescinding that our earlier motion, and I'll make this motion, and we can discuss with all the commissioners. I make a motion to have public hearings scheduled and proceed via Zoom or regular meetings and reflect that in the public notice. Is there support for that?
Support.
Supported by Mr. Zarzaki. Okay, we can have discussion on the motion. Anyone like to discuss anything regarding that? Ms. Chick.
I just wanted to comment that we elected officials received something from the MTA today. They are actually looking at getting information from the townships and the elected officials about their experience with Zoom, how comfortable they are with it, because the intention, it sounds like, is that they want to continue it even beyond the end of the COVID crisis as a regular form of meeting or a combination of in-person and Zoom so that more people can participate.
Thank you. Mr. Aquino?
Yes, sir. I was asked to share this by two residents, so I am that they would prefer to be able to have a public hearing in person. And because it is difficult for one of the individuals doesn't have internet access, and it's difficult for them to follow it via phone, and the other one just feels that they would like it in person. So those aren't my sentiments. I was asked to share that, so I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dwyer.
I can understand that sentiment. 2 of the 7 participants in tonight's meeting are having trouble being heard. 1 can't be seen, 2 are having trouble being heard. That's quite a big percentage. And this is a commission that is doing this regularly. So I can fully expect that there would be a number of people that don't have the ability to participate, and we should be aware of that.
You can't see me raise my hand. Can I pipe in?
Yes, Ms. Infante.
I'm pleased that Mr. Lippens was able to confirm with all of the applicants that they are comfortable, because I think that's paramount. But I also really feel strongly about what Mr. Dwyer just expressed, given that I'm dropping in and out, of course, and you can't even see me, that I just hope there isn't a sentiment among the public that they are being disadvantaged. We have a problem, but we do need to proceed. And I think we might just have to cope with things as they fall out, given, like, again, Mr. Lippin said, pretty unprecedented situation we're in, and we got to move forward.
So you're suggesting that we do continue public hearings with the possibility of using Zoom?
Yeah, I am. I think it's important to move forward, but it's really going to be a challenge, and we need to be prepared for that.
Right. I also can say, I'm glad to hear also that the majority of the applicants are willing to do so. And although there are some minor holdbacks with our Zoom process, me cutting out once in a while or whatever, what have you, I think that we could still continue to have the public hearings with Zoom. And actually, in watching the Board of Trustees meeting, and I think it was Ms. Chick that mentioned, I don't know if it was during the regular Board of Trustees meeting or if it was prior, that actually there's been a lot more participants watching via Zoom, at least watching the meetings from home, than us having regular meetings and nobody showing up. Is that correct, Ms. Chick?
Yes, we noticed it at the board meetings, even on the planning commission. Typically, there's nobody there, but now we get occasionally people, 2 or 3 handful, but more than before. So,
Right.
And I concur that I really believe that every single one of us would prefer we could do this in person, but we do have to continue the business of the township, or there will be problems. So this is the best option we have right now.
I agree. And reflecting Mr. Iaquinto's comments, although were those residents that posed that concern to you, or applicants? Is it residents you said? You're muted. He's still muted. There you go.
They were residents, sir.
Okay. And so they still have opportunity. They can still contact the commission via email, mail, and there's still that option also. So understood. Some people don't like it at all, but I think it is important that we continue on. Mr. Zarzecki, do you have a comment?
Yes, basically, I think all of us would prefer to be present for all of our meetings, including the public hearings. We are in an unusual time. Everybody's had to make compensations, and not everybody can do Zoom or any of the other meeting sections. Some of us have got good connections, some of us don't. Um, but we still have to keep business moving along as best we can. And I think that's what we've delayed it long enough for some of the applicants, hoping that, this would clear, but I don't see it clearing completely this year yet. Until the governor, and the health officials deem that it's wise to have public meetings with more than 10 people, I think we're going to be stuck with Zoom, and we're going to have to make the best of it. So.
Agreed. I agree with that. And Mr. Lippens, so it is safe on that motion. I said that we can send out the public notices stating that it would be either Zoom or regular meeting if it is possible. So there's not an issue with that, correct?
I believe the way you phrase that motion is suitable for our purposes.
Okay. Very good.
Regarding your voting on the motion, I just want to, I don't believe that I heard a vote on the rescinding motion.
Not yet.
So I just wanted to remind Planning Commission to take a vote on both motions.
We'll do that. Any other comments? Mr. Dwyer.
How is that link going to be made available? It needs to be in such a form that when anyone goes on the township website, it is front and center. They're not hunting and pecking for it.
Mr. Lippens, can you respond to that?
Well, I could talk with Ms. Carlisle, who handles the most of the web posting, to make sure. I believe that it could go in the news section of the website. There's a couple banners that are right on the homepage that we could utilize, and I'll make that request that we do.
Thank you. I know there's been talk for some time about improving the website, and it probably just hasn't happened yet, Mr. Dwyer, that I know of. So maybe Ms. Chick can add to that. Ms. Chick?
Yeah, no, they haven't proved much on the website, unfortunately. However, Ms. Carlisle does post on several sites online information about what's going on in the township, and she can post a link in every single one of those. So that might be helpful as well. I have a question or maybe a suggestion, because I would be really interested in allowing the public to voice their opinion on these public hearings as we do them. My thinking is public hearings are for the purpose of listening to the public comment on the issue. I don't know that we should be making decisions at a public hearing, especially if we're doing it virtually. If we give people time before the public hearing and after the public hearing to send in comment, at least, we really want to listen to what they have to say and then make the decision on whatever at the next meeting. Just a suggestion.
I so strongly agree with you.
Okay.
I do as well. Good idea.
Mr. Lippens, do you have a response to that?
I do. I think that it's a good point. And the one thing I wanted to just also remind everyone else that, if we have potentially 5 or 6 public hearings, it would be a lot for you to also try to make decisions on all of them. So I think that trying to focus on hearing residents and also hearing from the applicants, and then having an opportunity to review the site plan package and ask questions of myself and the engineer. We could request the chief to come if you think you'll have questions for the chief. That the first public hearing night maybe should be an informational session, and then we could reconvene at your next regular meeting for the decisions. And then I think the other thing that is out there as a possibility, if we start to feel like there's too much business to get done, we can call special meetings. The one thing to keep in mind about doing a special meeting, if Planning Commission is inclined, is that our discussion would be limited to the topics on the agenda for that special meeting.
Mr. Dwyer?
I suspect this is going to become all-consuming over the next couple of months. Let's not forget there's other businesses out there that have got as much right to get applications in and site plan review as anyone else. And they mustn't get pushed to the back of a very long line because of this.
Right.
I would agree with that.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, Ms. Infante.
Regarding access and streamlining or improving the website, is it at all possible simply to add a tab, where it says community business FAQ, a tab there that says Zoom access? I don't know what the requirements are in terms of how many people we can support, but it would be nice if a person could just go to the Northfield Township website and there's the tab for Zoom, and they can click on it and get access to whatever meeting happens to be running at the moment. Just a thought.
Good idea.
Thank you. I am not your person to ask that. If anyone wants to respond, like Mr. Lippens or Ms. Bird, feel free.
It would be Jennifer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Ms. Bird, I see is present. Can we make sure Ms. Bird heard Ms. Infante's recommendation? Forward it?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Also, my other comment on this is, Paul, when we do get to doing the site plan reviews and the conditional use permit reviews, I think we should limit it to 3 max a night. You already said that you're going to have 5 or 6. I would suggest breaking it in half. It'd be 2 meetings, consecutive meetings. That's an awful lot to do 6 in one meeting. Do you agree?
Definitely.
So it was my intent to schedule all the public hearings.
Public hearings set aside. I'm
Okay.
referring to, and I agree with the suggestion, having public hearings, have a time lapse, then that possibly the next meeting, the site plan reviews and the conditional use permit reviews. That's what I'm referring to, is the night that we're going to do those actual site plan and conditional use reviews, to have a limit of 3.
I understand, and I think if it's the consensus of Planning Commission, we can, schedule agendas in that manner.
Okay, I think we should, and if we find that we can do more, certainly the next meeting we can, if there happens to be more of those in the process, we can certainly add them on. I'm not stuck on 3, but I just think that we should break it apart. So, okay, well, we had I rescinded my motion, supported by Mr. Zarzecki. We'll now vote by roll call. If you vote yes, that means you are in agreement with rescinding our motion from the last meeting. So, Mr. Zarzecki, can you do a roll call vote on the rescinding of our original motion?
Yes. Ms. Chick,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Quinto,
Yes.
Ms. Infante,
Yes.
Mr. Roman,
Yes.
and Zarzecki, yes. So 6, 1 absent.
Thank you. And we'll go to the other motion, the new motion, which was to have the public hearing scheduled and proceed via Zoom or regular meeting, and reflect that on the public notices. Mr. Zarzecki, can you do a roll call vote on that?
Yes. Ms. Chick,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Quinto,
Yes.
Ms. Infante,
Yes.
Mr. Roman,
Yes.
Zarzecki, yes. So again, 6, 1 absent.
Okay. Thank you. I think that takes care of that for that unfinished business. So you agree, Mr. Lippens?
I do.
You agree?
I do agree. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So moving on, there's no new business tonight. Make a motion, we approve the preceding minutes from June 3rd, our Zoom meeting, and dispense with the reading.
Support.
Supported by Ms. Chick. Any questions, comments, or corrections on the minutes?
That was Cecilia.
It was actually Infante.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Infante. Any questions, comments, corrections? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed. Final call to the public. Mr. Lippens will go do a public call to public last time.
Great. Thank you, Chair. We'll follow the same procedure as last time. If you would like to make a comment in the final call, please raise your hand. I will unmute you, allow you to speak, and you will have 3 minutes. I did see a member of the public named DJ had their hand up first. DJ, I'm going to allow you to talk and unmute you.
And he has 3 minutes.
Well, DJ is unmuted. Okay.
I just had a question about the Zoom meetings, and do you know the capacity for members to join?
I didn't hear your whole question, DJ. Could you repeat it?
Yes, of course. I'm wondering, when you are running a Zoom meeting, what is the capacity for number of members to join? And then how do we wait until the end of the meeting for comments? I've not joined a meeting prior to this, so I wanted to understand better.
Mr. Lippens, I'll let you answer that question for clarification purposes.
Thank you, Chair. The meeting is, DJ, thank you for your comment. Usually during public hearings, we do not respond, but the chair has asked me to respond. The meeting is ran in the same way as our in-person meetings. And in addition to Planning Commission, the board also follows this general practice too. 2 calls to the public are scheduled at each meeting. There is a call at the front of the meeting and at the back of the meeting. I think in this way, if residents are only able to attend part of the meeting, they can get an opportunity to speak. Although in many cases, residents choose to speak at both if they follow or want to make comments on discussion that happened during the meeting. The board and the Planning Commission does ask residents to limit their comments to 3 minutes. And generally that's not really a problem. With regard to the number of people who can actually attend a Zoom meeting, that's information I would have to look up, but it's more than we've ever had. And Trustee Chick knows.
Well, I'm not exactly sure which plan, but it's either 100 or unlimited. So we'll have to find out for sure.
Would it still be protocol? I'm asking everyone, and maybe DJ, it's in your interest for authority purposes, for residents to state their name and address?
It is, Cecilia. So yes, DJ, typically also we ask people to state their name and address if they're a township resident, which I didn't ask you to do. So perhaps you could indulge us with that as well.
Of course. My name is Donna Johns, and I'm at 2009 Noller Bend in Whitmore Lake.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to comments, or excuse me, we'll go to finish any other call to the public. I know Mr. Zarzecki has a comment, but perhaps you can address it at commissioners' comments.
I've muted, I believe it was it Don, DJ? I think it was. Anyway, apologize if it's not. Short memories. I do see another member of the public who would like to speak. Mr. Gordon has his hand raised. Mr. Gordon, I'm going to unmute you and you have the floor.
Thank you very much. David Gordon, Helmer Road. So right now you're planning on having the public hearings on July 15th for all 6 applicants. Can you clarify for me when you plan on then speaking or actually addressing the applications themselves? Because you're not going to do that at the public hearing. So is that 2 weeks later that you'll listen to 3 applicants, and then 2 weeks after that, the next 3 applicants? Because I would assume that these folks kind of want to get going with their projects. How would you decide which 3 you listen to first and which 3 you listen to next? And are you planning on, I heard Mr. Roman, Chairman Roman possibly say, I think it was him, that you might have a special meeting. So maybe you'd have them one night after the next so that all the applicants have, hearings after the public hearing wouldn't be having to wait even longer. I don't remember exactly when these applications came in, but now we're talking about July 15th, and then we're into August already. I don't know if anybody would consider this quick. So I'm just trying to figure out what the time frame is really going to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. I do not see any other members of the public who would like to speak at this time.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps I can answer Mr. Gordon's question. No, it was not me that suggested special meetings, but if the Planning Commission deems necessary, we can always do that. To look at more than 3 in one evening, I think is it's a lot. It's a lot of information. I'm not interested in doing the 4.5-hour meetings as another board does. So it's a little bit too lengthy, and we understand that the applicants are wishing to be taken care of and addressed as fast as possible. And I think we're going to achieve that regardless. No matter if the public hearing was held a week or 2 weeks before, there's no other public hearing. So if we're grouping all of the public hearings at one time, everyone that has a comment about any of the applications can speak at that time. And those comments will be held over until the commission looks at the site plan review and the conditional use permit review. Mr. Lippens, is there anything that I did not cover in that comment?
I think you got it.
Thank you. So we'll go to other commissioners. Mr. Dwyer? None. Mr. Iaquinto?
None, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Zarzaki?
Just as a response to BJ, I have had Zoom meetings with 150 people on them. So I'm not sure if it's unlimited, but we can get a substantial amount of residents applying or contacting us through it if needed so that they can have access to the meeting. And as far as who goes first and second, I'm sure Mr. Lippens will take them in the order that they applied on their date that they applied, rather than doing any other selection. We're not trying to pick favorites.
Thank you. Ms. Chick?
Yep, I just got a response. Our participation is unlimited, so whoever wants to participate can.
Thank you. Ms. Infante?
No additional comments. Very good meeting.
And I see Mr. Dwyer raising his hand.
Yeah, I'm sorry I wasn't quite ready when you called me, but my preference on this contentious issue is to do it right, not fast. Even though we have to be expeditious about doing it, I don't feel any pressure to rush things through.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, we're done with comments. I'll announce the next regular meeting July 1st and make a motion to adjourn. Or by Ms. Chick. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Good
Thank
meeting.
you.
Good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
I mean,